Hi, Andy, it's Patty. I know you're working on sleeves today, and I know you probably have great guidance from your sewing teacher, Phyllis, but I thought that I would show you a little trick that I have learned over the years that might help you for your future sleeves. Okay, so I'm gonna show you some stuff. We'll see if this works out, and maybe I'll send it to you. Okay, all right, here we go. So, on the table, I have cut out a couple things that I think are probably similar to the shirt you're working on. This is just like a women's button-down shirt, but it was kind of the closest thing I had, and I just had some like random fabric here that I just cut this out of. Okay, so just to get started, we're going to make sure we have all our markings. So on a sleeve, you're going to have a double notch, that's for your back. You're going to usually have a few other markings that are going to help you match some stuff up. So what I like to do is just go in and just make a little slit at those markings in my seam allowance, so I have them for matching up. So I'm just going to make some little slits there, and then I have my notches here, here, and here. So here's my sleeves. Obviously you'll have two sleeves, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing over here. So I've got my notch, make sure we have our notch, and then I have this little dot that's going to correspond to the dot on the sleeve. So then I'm just going to go in and again just do a little nip right like that, just like a little cut. Okay, so then I'm gonna have all my pieces prepped, and then I'm gonna show you how to put them together. Okay, so now we have our back center piece. So that's the piece you probably cut on the fold, and we're gonna do our two shoulders, just how the pattern's gonna tell you. You're gonna do your shoulder and your shoulder. So you're gonna put your right sides together at the shoulder, and then you're just gonna sew across that normally. All right, I'm gonna do that, and I'll be back to show you the sleeve tip. Okay, so here we are. I just sewed together just the shoulder seams. I press this open so it's easier to see our shoulder seams. So your pattern instructions probably tells you to then go and sew closed your side seam. And that is one way to do it. It's probably how you just did the sleeve you put in, and then it has you take the sleeve and make the sleeve into a cylinder. We're gonna do it different. So we're gonna just put our steps in a different order. So we're gonna take it, and basically I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna take our sleeve and we are going to sew it on while the side seam and the side of the sleeve, here's my sleeve, the side of the sleeve are still open, and then we're gonna come back in and we're gonna sew the whole side seam and sleeve seam closed in one stitch. Okay, my pattern calls for some easing to my sleeve cap. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just do that real quick on the sewing machine. I'll pop over there and show the easing stitch, which is my longest stitch length. Your pattern might not call for that, but if it does, I'm just gonna sort of show you what that is. We're gonna do an easing stitch, and that's gonna be between the two circles that were about here on my shoulder cap, my sleeve cap. All right, popped at the sewing machine, I'll show you that. Okay, here we are at the sewing machine. So I'm gonna first give you one little trick. I like to tell people to give themselves an even seam allowance. I like to use this tape. It's literally just skinny masking tape. And I like to put it on my seam allowance, and then it's really clear where I need to sew. So this is 5/8 for what we're doing. So I'm gonna do some ease stitching on my sleeve cap. I'm doing it within my seam allowance, so I'm not going all the way to my red line for this. I will when I sew my pieces together. See if you can see that any better. Okay, so an easing stitch, it's your longest stitch length with no lock stitching. So I'm just going to go from this mark up over the top. And then I'm making sure not to lock stitch. This easing stitch will help me gather in the fabric if I need to adjust it so that it fits. So that's all that is. It's just a little gathering stitch. Ooh, can we see that? There we go. So a little gathering stitch for easing. Okay, so now we're gonna go back and we're gonna pin our sleeve to the front and back of our shirt. Okay, here we are back. We have a sleeve, and we have, this is our front of our shirt and our back of the shirt attached at the shoulder seam. So I'm going to find the correct sleeve, which for this one is... Okay, we're back. All right, I had to take a phone call and my phone ran out of storage. So here we are, different angle. All right, so here we have this is the back of our shirt, this is the front of our shirt, and here is our sleeve. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to now pin and sew in our sleeve while our side seam and our sleeve seam are still open. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to match up all landmarks. So we had 5 landmarks. And when I say landmarks, I mean, let's start with this double notch. We know that's the back. So I'm going to find this double notch here, and I'm going to line those things up. Hold on, let me grab some pins. Whoa. Oops, sorry about that. All right. Now we see why Patty doesn't make videos. Okay. All right, we're back. All right, so let's match up our notches. Here we go. So I'm going to match up my notches. I'm matching up the beginning here of my seam. And I'm just going to start there. So I've matched up the beginning. There we go. I'm matching up my notch. All right, then I'm going to do it on the other side. So that was the back, and now I'm going to match up this. So there's my small notch, and that right there. Sorry, my Pandora station, my Spotify station is giving us commercials. Okay, so now we're going to match up our other landmarks. So we're going to have a little snip right there. This is the top of my sleeve, and that corresponds to the seam. So there's a seam. There's that little cut. Let's stick a pin there. Then we should have another one over here that should match up. So again, I got 2 little cuts. On the pattern piece, just a reminder, those actually were little circles. And then we're going to go over here, and this is our 5th landmark. We have another cut right there. Okay. All right, so there's where we're at right now. You can see that the sleeve is pretty much pinned in. But when you're putting in a sleeve, you're going to have some extra fabric here and here. This is our sleeve cap. So we need to use our thread to ease it in. So I'm going to grab one of the 2 threads here. I'm going to pull. And you can see as I pull, it's easing in my fabric. So now I'm going to ease it in until those 2 are the same ratio, meaning they're the same size. Obviously this that's gathered is more fabric. And then once we have it pretty evenly distributed, we're going to pin that in. Now your pattern probably does not have this much easing or gathering in it. Getting this even is always tricky. And a lot of times with women's shirts, there'll be a little bit more. So you can see how we've just sort of eased in that area. That's at the sleeve. And now we're going to do it right here. I want to take the same thread. So this one's closest to me. Just grabbing it. Okay, let's get it so it's even. I'm going to just distribute my gathers or my eases. I don't know if that's a word, eases. All right, let's pin this in. I'm probably pinning more than I would pin if I was sewing, but I think it's better to have more than less pins. I hope this is somewhat clear. Okay, so then if I feel like we need a couple more pins, so we can see usually before the easing stitches, that part of your sleeve matches up pretty 1 for 1. Now the reason this is like helpful or a tip, okay, we're back. hopefully I won't run out of storage again. All right, so we're all pinned. So you can see that we have ends matched up, notches matched up, other markings notched up, and any extra, we have it eased in. So this is the sleeve side we're looking at. And then this is the... Okay, we're trying again. Hopefully this will work. I have a different camera and it is plugged into the wall. Let's see what happens. Okay, so back at this, we are pinned. So here is the sleeve side and here is the front of shirt side and the back of shirt side. So you can see right now they're evenly distributed. So we got our notches, we've got a little bit of easing up here. So we are going to take this to the sewing machine and do a 5/8 inch seam allowance all the way up and over. And you can see how this can be easier because you're not trying to sew two tubes into each other. It's a little more straightforward as far as where you're going to sew. So we're sewing from here to there. All right, let's go to the sewing machine. Can I pause? I didn't know. Okay, here we are at the sewing machine and we are going to sew together those two parts that we just pinned. If I can do this in front of the camera. Okay, so now I'm actually using this 5/8 inch seam allowance guide. And I'm going to start with the lock stitch. I'm going to sew the whole seam together and end with the lock stitch. Okay, here we go. So I'm using black thread so you can just kind of see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm just going to sew that all the way up. Okay, here we are. We're still sewing. I had to adjust the camera. All right. So as you come up and over, so I'm just sewing over these pins a little bit just for time. And the way I position them, I should not really run into them. Okay, so when you get to this more easing part, you don't really want gathers in. You just want to kind of ease it in so it's kind of equally distributed. So now I am going up and over the top. Now I'm coming all the way down. You can see it's just, I'm just adjusting, going. All right, you get the idea. Okay, and here we are at the end. Okay, I'm gonna take all those pins out. Okay, so now you can see that this is attached together all the way up and over. Here is the other side. It's all stitched together. So now what we do is we take this and we're gonna open it up. I'll show this on the big table. Okay, here we are back at the big table. So you can see that your sleeve is now sewn in. Here's our sleeve. You can sort of fold it like this. You can see there's our sleeve completely sewn in. So now inside out, we are going to sew from the cuff all the way down, matching up right there. Your this would be basically like your armpit seam there, and then you're going to sew all the way down to the bottom. So it's going to be one long stitch. So from here all the way to the arm junction here. So you want to make sure you match up those two seam allowances, and then all the way to the bottom. And there you go. And you got your sleeve put in, and then you got your sleeve seam and your side seam all sewn. Okay, I hope that might be helpful for the next time you put in a sleeve. Happy sewing. Bye.